Paula, I loved like working through your plan. It was fun.
So it's a lot of, well, we had the advantage in fairness, as otherwise have opened across the country. We took the best we could from their plans, but they're all a little different because of different regulations and the consistency, the lack of consistency around just basic regulations on different things has been kind of a challenge across the country. So.
You mean lack of consistency from a local regulatory standpoint or just operationally?
Well, I think, you know, one state might have one specific set of requirements, but another state might do it differently.
Right.
Those kind of things. So it just, everybody's just a little bit different about what's being done in each community.
Yeah.
The pools are just kind of an easy example. You know, some communities are opening indoor pools for exercise only, and others are like, nah, no pools yet. So it's one of our clarifying points that we need to figure out as well.
I guess we can just get started and jump right into it, and then give us some extra time maybe at the end. The big thing, I guess, is just discussing the benchmarks and guidelines again. And it sounds like the easiest way is to just kind of attack this questionnaire and maybe focus on the mayor's 3 points and then anything else that anyone else saw. And then Paula, if you're able to, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the YMCA plan and then any other things that you heard from other gyms. If you had
unfortunately, I have not had a lot of time to do the other gyms piece, but I have someone working on that. So.
Hey, Sal, just real quick, I've got to read this statement at the start of the meeting.
Okay.
Due to the COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency and Governor Beshear's executive orders regarding social distancing, this meeting is being held via teleconference pursuant to Senate Bill 150, as signed by the governor on March 30th, 2020, and Attorney General Opinion 20-05, and in accordance with KRS 61.826, because it is not feasible to offer a primary physical location for the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Quinn. And then Elodie, I guess the question I have for you is, with all of this, as we kind of talk about it, are we then just compiling these notes and then turning them in tomorrow? Is that correct?
Yes, you can submit them. I mean, you've submitted the original document to your subcommittee as well as to Quinn, Kevin, and I. So yesterday there was a couple concerns that some of the subcommittee members had about, it was really more clarification on some of the summary documents, the answers to that. So if your group wants to add something, essentially you have today to do that, and then tomorrow would be the due date. Is that right, Quinn?
Yeah, that's correct. We're asking for everything by tomorrow at noon.
Okay, sweet. Well, I guess we'll just jump right in. So the mayor's questions, that first one was, what are your plans for reopening and what are benchmarks, guidelines that are needed to reopen? Just looking at it quickly, most of it seemed to be tying to the 10 rules and then just our specific industries and how we're connecting to that. I'm not sure there's anything that anyone wants to jump in and add to it, but that seemed to be the overwhelming consensus from it. Perfect. All right. And then the other second one was, what do business organizations in your sector need to do to reopen safely under the governor's 10 rules to reopen? Again, that was more of the guidelines, PPE, and then a lot of focus on health and safety, which was a very constant and consistent thing throughout all of these questions, which was nice to see. And then the third one was what is the process for scaling back operations? And that was kind of reverting back, being safe, and also driven by the situation, which I think is pretty factual. Some of it we'll just have to kind of see as it comes along and hear from the governor's team on how we have to pull back. Are there anything specifically you guys want to discuss, maybe tied to your industry in those 3 questions? And then if not, we can probably just take a quick look and highlight a few things here and there, and then kind of hand it over to Paula for a bit for the YMCA section.
Hey, Sal, just real quick. One thing I might note on the pulling back operations in the event of a second wave, Some of the other subcommittees are basically just spelling out kind of what they're doing now in terms of what they would do in terms of scaling back. So, like for instance, the craft brewery folks, their plan if they can't operate a tap room in the future is just to scale back to what they're doing now, which is curbside and delivery and that sort of thing. So that's just one thing we might consider including.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess to elaborate on that, that was something, and I'm sure some of you probably have the same comments, but we don't necessarily plan to scale up until we're confident that we can do that. So we're kind of planning on, if we have to, jump back to curbside. And at this point too, I mean, with 2 months under our belt, we feel much more comfortable in that process than we would have, 2-3 months ago.
What about closing some roads or parts of roads or things for companies like yours or restaurants or things like that? Seems like I'd heard maybe some other communities had considered doing that to allow more outside seating, that type of thing. Any talk of that, you think?
Barney, I can answer that question. Sal brought that to our attention actually before everybody started talking about it in newspapers 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it is something we're taking a very deep dive look at.
Okay.
Anything anyone else wants to add on any of those first three?
I don't think, it sounds like we're all pretty much on the same page, just kind of slight tweaks based on what our business type is to me.
Well, we can jump into Mary Quinn's questions if there's anything anyone maybe wants to call out first before we go into more of the specific questions. But again, I mean, I think the consistent thing from all of us was making sure customers and employees were safe and healthy, that we had access to PPE, sharing a positive message about this, and then I think in general, just finding ways to survive and exist in this environment.
Yeah, good point. I think survive in advance or whatever. It's like the NCAA tournament,
Is there anything, I guess, question for all of you? I know from this industry and restaurant, they've talked about trying to find ways to have different types of funds for situations like this. I'm not sure in terms of your industries if that's something similar or something that's not needed. I would assume there's got to be some type of need for that.
I mean, we participated in that payroll protection plan, and that was a really nice helping hand for us, I can tell you that. So come in very handy. They're talking about more monies dishing out. I mean, it seems like we've been able as an essential business to be able to operate outside of our showroom. So I think for companies that have been shut down totally, those are the folks that might be more worthy of additional funds to me.
I think the big concern going forward is operational loss. I think a lot of businesses are going to just, if people come back, they're going to come back slowly. We certainly don't expect to open our doors day one to all of our members. I think that across the country's wise are seeing about 25% participation. Cool. Normally see in the first few weeks, which is fine. But until that's huge operational loss. I mean, for us, in terms of the rest of the year, if we can't program, and our program's up too. And one of the struggles we're having right now is just waiting for specific guidance around things like childcare, summer camp.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't know what we can plan, and not getting guidance a month out really inhibits our ability to even execute those programs. If we're going to run summer camps in July, we need to be working on that now, and we are. But I can't hire staff back for those programs until I know how much staff I'm going to need.
Yeah, I think that you hit on something that we hear a lot. You know, again, we've been fortunate that most of our companies are up and going, but from friends and family, that's the big thing that I hear is, you know, we're going to slowly open back up, but childcare is not even in the picture.
Right.
And that's just kind of absurd not to throw that in there and get some guidance out for that as soon as possible, or at least correspond with things that are opening up, because there's so many parents that depend on the childcare and activities for their kids so they can go back to work.
Right.
That would be something I would encourage, anything through LFUCG and your advocacy efforts or
Yes.
weekly conversations with the governor, if you're still having them, to promote that for sure, because we're seeing it. And while I'm on my soapbox, I put in my comments the $600 extra on the unemployment that's out there. We see that in our industry as a direct competitor going back to work, and I'm sure that a lot of the service industry will see the same thing, and I'm hearing it more and more every day. That's going to be a real impediment to get people to come back to work. We're even seeing it with students we're trying to enroll in our program. We've had 2 or 3 students now that have been laid off, or potential students looking to come to the trades that are saying that they don't want a job right now, even though we've got a job with a plumber and HVAC company, because they want to run their unemployment out, and they're getting paid more than the job that they left and getting laid off, because they're afraid that if in 6 months, if we have another spike and they get laid off in their new job, that they won't be able to collect their full unemployment benefits. So, I mean, it's a real direct competitor to work, and I think that's problematic.
I would agree. We're going to see that too. That was one of my concerns about staffing camps. And let me just echo what he said about childcare. We do have a date on childcare, June the 15th. I cannot open childcare centers on June the 15th without guidance right now.
Right.
So the 2 centers, the 2 full service centers that we run right now, one in Frankfort, one in Lexington, will not open June the 15th unless we get some guidance now. We are not sure, given what we're hearing, whether those centers can reopen in a fiscally responsible way. So childcare centers won't reopen from our perspective until we have a chance to review that guidance and see whether we can execute it appropriately and not create financial risk for everybody.
So just real quick on that point, we've Kevin and I the past couple of days have kind of worked on the framework for what each subcommittee's report will kind of fall, like what the framework will look like. And I think so many of these subcommittees have put forth just items they need clarification on. And I think that's what we're hearing here. So when we look at this report, we're going to have 3 columns for each subcommittee. We're going to have one that's recommendations for the governor to add to take into consideration. Number 2 column is going to be requests for clarification, and I think something like this would fall right under that column. Kevin, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to contradict, but what I'm hearing Todd say is not a clarification issue, but an application
Policy
issue.
issue.
And so I'm not sure it's in, and what Quinn's talking about, we've got that format on the page where it's 3 columns, but I'm not sure it's a clarification column issue, Quinn. I think it's a comment from the committee.
It's an economic reality.
Right.
And it should be commented as such. Pardon me for being late, by the way.
And I think the council member's right. And that's a better way to say it is a reality. And I mean, it's not the first time it's been said.
You know, I think one thing that this sort of hits on is I think the timing, the ability to react by the local and state governments for when issues come up is going to, it seems to me that they're going to, the government is going to have to start being more entrepreneurial and more be in a position to act quickly, because we're all having to figure out how this is going to work. And, you know, for just like with the childcare situation, you need to know, because there's a lead time to get folks in and get set up, right?
Oh,
Whatever those
absolutely.
requirements are. right?
Yeah.
And so when we're trying to figure out whether curbside service is an issue, closing streets, this can't be these things can't go through a 2 or 3 or 4 month kind of process to get, to get resolved, or to get guidance on, right? I think that's as I've thought about this since last week, I think that's one of the big challenges that we're going to run into is the reality of how we have to operate versus how we've always done things. That's for us as people in business, as well as for folks in government as well. So.
Kevin, are you guys collaborating with any of the other cities like Louisville and any of them in Northern Kentucky or Owensboro, Bowling Green on what they're doing from a business standpoint on this? I know I'm part of 2 different peer groups where we share ideas every week. I'm actually getting on a weekly call as soon as I'm done with this one. And it really helps hearing what other areas across the state or even, benchmark associations that I know across the country are doing and how they're operating. I just wondered if you guys are engaging any of that. If you're not, maybe a great idea to maybe reach out to your counterpart in Louisville or whatever and then you can bring that guidance back to us as local business supporters.
Yeah, Todd, we actually have kept in pretty close contact with Louisville on a lot of issues facing the government and how they're dealing with different issues. And you're right. I mean, it's great to have those. And we've kind of watched, just to a point Sal brought up, what Tampa's done with, for example, with extending out onto roadways for restaurants and things like that. So yeah, we're taking a look at different models.
Yeah. Didn't Louisville?
In a sense, something like that needs to happen sooner than later instead of waiting 5 months to figure that out. I think with the summer here, I think somebody needs to make a call on that very soon, it seems to me.
Barney, I think you'll see our comments on that probably in time for restaurants if they need to address it moving forward when they can reopen.
I got some constituent input on it yesterday and the day before about, maximizing outdoor seating and making it as easy as possible, as quickly as possible, as supposedly Louisville has done, which I think we can do too. So is this framework, you need more comments from us to complete the task that you were, Kevin, you were talking about, I guess, or Quinn?
Quinn, are you comfortable with, because I was a few minutes late myself getting on here because of another session. Are you comfortable with where you're at in the committee, the information you've gotten from the committee?
Yeah, I believe so.
Don't you think a lot of this is going to be ready, fire, aim? I mean, whatever we do, we're going to have to immediately adjust. And I think I don't know how to program dynamics in this other than just people will have to understand rules are going to change quickly. I don't know.
Council member, I think that's a good point, because I think one of the good things about this document, and goes to what Barney was just saying, after we get this out, yeah, these are recommendations we hope can be adopted. But if we use it right here, if they are adopted or given the go ahead, then inside this building, we should be ready to go, quite frankly.
Okay. And I think that's a positive thing to say and good for the community to hear, for that matter.
I do too, actually. Yeah.
On the extended unemployment issue, just a note, I know that there is movement in Washington to extend that beyond July. So that is something as employers, I think all of us will have to keep an eye on. That happened somewhat back in the downturn, the recession, extended unemployment benefits. But if that extends into the fall, I think that's really going to be a potential impediment around hiring staff to come back to work, particularly in the part-time roles.
Paula, I would encourage anybody that has a concern on that. We've got 3 good congressional offices right here in town.
Yeah, that's true.
who welcome that kind of feedback. In fact, they're helping us on one of the other committees. They're actually part of the committees, but they're easily accessible. And I would suggest reaching out and giving them your firsthand knowledge of that.
Will do.
And I only say that, I'm not trying to pass the buck, but that is a federal
No,
issue.
absolutely. Absolutely. You're right.
Sal, do you feel like we're in good shape?
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I was gonna ask, one was the challenges, which I think we've all been talking about, but the other thing was communicating, how LFUCG communicates best, and then how we communicate as a community. And I would just kind of like to hear feedback. I mean, I've read some of it, and I know from my perspective, I just think there has to be some consistent, constant communication, because I think we all know if there's like one email, we forget about it. So how do we like make this unified, coming down correctly? Is it a message from LFUCG? Is it a message from Visit Lex? Is there a specific day we can expect a press conference? Something that like keeps people up to date. That would be one thing I'm just kind of wondering other people's ideas on.
You have a wonderful network of organizations that are connected to the business community and other, nonprofit community and charitable community here to reach out to those leaders, through everybody from the Housing Authority to the Urban League to us to LBAR to the Chamber, with your message that we can then spread. We have the ability to spread out to, literally 1,000 companies. Commerce Lexington, thousands of companies. LBAR, thousands of independent companies, for example, just at those three. So we are more than happy to help. I'm sure, I'm not speaking for those organizations, but I know I talked with them enough. I know they would be happy to get any word out through our distribution list that we could on behalf of the city, if that helps in any way. And I'll echo another thing that I put in my comments. You look at the statistics for Fayette County, especially, we've handled this very well. We compared to other communities, even the little small town I'm from, where we had a blow up in a nursing home, and, a few hundred cases in a town of, 3,000 people. We've handled this very well. There's a lot of positive things to talk about in our messaging to keep people upbeat. Everybody you talk to, I mean, even on this Zoom conference, we kind of all, we're concerned, we're worried, and this is a place that we can be concerned and worried. But when we talk about this out in the public, and when I talk about it with our member companies, I try to be as positive about things that are going on as I can. We don't hear a lot of that from media. So I would really encourage you guys to be very positive in your messaging. I mean, that would be refreshing to a lot of people, I think, at this time.
Helpful. I agree. All right.
Kevin, are there plans for like a weekly press conference? Has that been discussed, or is this all still?
I don't know that a weekly press conference, we tend to do those when there's something specific to talk about. What we have talked about, and it came up, Quinn, I can't remember which one we were on yesterday, but the ability of somehow on the city website to have a specific portion of it just for these issues that stays up to date on the guidance, up to date on what's coming, just so everybody almost has a one-stop apparatus that if they needed to check on something, they could go there and look for it. I mean, the mayor does try to do things on social media and press releases when there's something specific to either highlight or talk about. But what if you need that at 6 o'clock at night? And we're trying to figure out. I mean, I'm talking into your world, Tim, but we're trying to do it in a way where the access is there when people need it.
Right. And I think it's important to. I mean, it's the communication going out as to what's happening, but it's some kind of a method, whether it's Slack or something like that, where people can comment back and give feedback as real-time feedback about things that they're trying, maybe that's been enacted, and so you can hear about it quickly.
And I know, like last week, and I mean, sometimes it's the small things, when we got the planning commission to the point where we could re-engage them, that council meetings are up and going and comfortable now, and we could move on to the next set of larger meetings, which was Planning Commission. I let Todd know that we were re-engaging that body so he could let his membership know. But if we had a place on a website where that information was as well, it could be a lot easier for his members potentially.
I also like Paula's suggestion in the chat too, where I just think sometimes it's really nice to know, okay, every Monday you're going to get this new information. So there's not the extra noise where you're not sure and what's coming in and what emails. So it would be nice if it is consistent, or we know like every Monday we're going to have the most up-to-date information, or every Friday, or whatever the case may be.
We can take, I mean, that's something we can definitely take a look at. I mean, keep in mind, part of that guidance is we're dependent on when it comes out of Frankfurt.
I do appreciate that the city's guidance has been consistent with the state. I mean, one of the challenges is, you know, there's so much noise right now. My inbox is full of people offering me COVID resources, and just sorting through all of that is really a challenge. And so I pick my own sources to go to, and it's nice when they're consistent. So I do appreciate that consistency between state and local guidance.
I do. I would say that I agree also with what Kevin was saying. I think of the COVID dashboard, where you can go and see that people have really used and been consistently using to see, you know, what's the latest number of cases, what's the latest number of deaths, that type of thing, to stay up to date. Well, with this, you know, when this is enacted, think about all the businesses that are affected. Where do we go to get that information? And where can we go consistently to see if there's any updated information? And knowing a central place to go look for it. For instance, if I'm a restaurant or if I'm a business like myself, can we have in-person meetings, et cetera? And, you know, in between, I think that's going to be very important for just part of that communication, the consistency, as you're saying. When we're consistent, when we have a location, go to here, whatever you call it, the dashboard, it'll always have the latest PDF documents or Word documents or whatever it is. You can go down, maybe the restaurant has a restaurant, you click it, it opens, and here's all the latest restrictions and regulations and everything else that has to do with it. Having that in place will take, I think, a lot of the questions that you're going to get early on. Go to the dashboard, it's on there. Go to the, you know, and help redirect them. And then they can consistently do it. Press releases, social media, everything can redirect people to that location. You then have a consistent mouthpiece. News organizations, as they said too, Commerce Lexington or L-Bar, everybody knows where to direct somebody to in that instance. I think that's important, consistency.
This is a questionnaire. Maybe, Paul, if you just want to do like a quick overview of your plan, just to, I mean, I think what's really nice, if anyone hasn't seen it, it was just all encompassing and comprehensive, and I think extremely helpful for anyone to kind of go through.
Well, I'll just briefly, we've been working on that plan for about a month, even before we had a date to reopen. And much as we shut down, we will begin back in a scaled fashion. But the team walked every inch of the building and walked through every single member interaction point to make sure that we were addressing safety concerns, to be as low touch, no touch as we can, as little paper as we can, you know, putting up barriers and screen guards where we need to have them. We really tried to look at it from both a staff and a member perspective, so that, you know, we're actually going to walk the talk. This week, we're reconfiguring all of our space to spread equipment out, to make sure we're 6 feet apart, to kind of actually sit together across from each other on equipment and in spaces, to make sure that, you know, there's no direct airflow, equipment is spaced back to front, things like that, so that people are not facing one another. It's a challenge. I mean, we've got 4 big facilities in Lexington, 2 in Frankfurt, and 2 childcare centers. So this has been a really intense team effort. But we did have the beauty of having otherwise go before us, and we also really looked at CDC guidance on, as best we can find it, on spacing, social distancing, and things like that. But I think the key to our plan is we're not going to try to do everything at once when we come back. Much to Sal's point, we're going to start with just the wellness centers and then work our way into group exercise and the pools as we train our staff and get comfortable and members feel more comfortable coming back in. Right now, we're working on what happens if we have an outbreak that comes back to our facilities. What's our plan on shutting down, cleaning, reopening? We'll work hand in hand with the health department on that. So this really was literally a walk through every inch of our building, walk through every interaction. What can we move to online? What do we have to do in person? Some clarification points I think that we still need will be around whether we're going to be required to do temperature checks on members who come in. We're going to do those on staff, certainly. We need clarification around whether we can open the pools. The indoor pools are exercise only pools. We're not going to open our outdoor pool at Beaumont unless the city opens their outdoor pools for the summer. That's our plan right now. We need clarification around when we can resume outdoor programming, youth sports. I mean, we've got some tentative dates on that, but no guidelines. So we're ready. I feel pretty good about where we are actually, but we do not expect that we'll have hundreds of people at the door the first day. And we're also, I think, importantly, working right now on our communication plan to members. So we're doing videos and FaceTime lives about, okay, here's what you could expect when you come in. Here's what's going to be different. Here's what we're going to need you to do as a member. So we're going to try to cover all those bases before we get open, but slow and steady, I think, on this one. And if we have to scale back, then we will scale back to where we are, either by a facility or holistically. Sure hope that does not happen.
That is detailed.
I will, Sal, I'll send you just clarification points that would be helpful for us specifically. If you would include those in your report, that'd be great.
Any other questions or comments? Or I'm also jealous that everyone seems to understand how to deal with their hair, and I have just like given up.
I don't know.
Barber has remained open. Barney's has too, it looks like.
Absolutely, yeah.
Kevin or Elodie or Quinn, I'm not sure if you guys have anything else or.
Quinn, I'm looking down at you.
Nothing for me. I think we've got some good stuff to include in this report. And Elodie, you have anything?
Nope, I do not.
As a committee, are we complete? Are we going to schedule another meeting?
My question.
What's the future?
I think at this point we are complete. If everybody's kind of satisfied, we will share a draft with Sal to make sure that it meets what the committee had said. If this committee wants to meet even after this report is issued, we'll be glad to try to help you get that done. I don't want to cut off the conversation, but the official work anyway, to answer the question, is complete.
Okay.
Well, then when would this information be shared with the public then?
Monday.
And then
If Quinn gets it written over the weekend, as is the plan, it'll be ready to go on Monday.
it's going to be a nice weekend, Quinn.
We've got a pretty good start. I think I'll be able to relax a little bit this weekend, but I'm not counting on it too much.
This is one of 16.
Yeah. If there is feedback that we want to know about or take action on, how would we would we corral that feedback, or where would it come to? Do you
I think that's a good question, and I think, you know, Quinn is probably the best central point for that because he's involved with all the committee apparatus.
I agree, and his name is used a lot in all of this stuff too. So so then I would just potentially, Mr. Chair, you know, leave it to him to let us know what filters in and share it with us and see if it rises to the occasion of a meeting or a conversation or whatever.
Sounds good.
Because I think we'd like to know if there'll have to be some changes in all this, and we're glad to help if we can as it implements across all platforms or all businesses.
Makes sense.
But Sal, I just would add on behalf of the mayor, and I think the council member would chime in. We appreciate you all and everybody else in this community that has helped with this effort. And Sal, a special thank you to chairing this and corralling everybody and keeping us on task and on focus.
Thank you. I mean, thanks for all the information. I feel like I'm learning a lot about other industries.
I want to echo what Todd said. I think it's important for us to be very positive in public with as many people as possible and battle the quiet desperation that is out there in some people's parts. And I'm looking forward to being open next Wednesday. I don't know what form it's going to take, but just getting some normalcy back will help a lot of people feel better. But I think we have to be very positive in our public stance because this wins it for us on a day-by-day basis.
Kevin, is there any guidance on phase 2 yet, or are we hearing on that on Monday?
Are you talking about phase 2 of this process?
Yeah.
We've had some conversations with both Bob Quick and Mary Quinn about how phase 2 could occur, but there's nothing kind of formal yet. This is the best way to say that.
Okay.
I think everybody, all the leadership of this effort, and I'm talking about Bob and Mary Quinn and Luther, wants to keep this. They don't think just because this period in time is done that this issue is done. So we need to continue to have that input and dialogue.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Salvador.
you all.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sal.
Thank you all.
Good luck today.